South Africa is set to spend about 121 billion rand on policing this year, one of the largest public safety budgets on the African continent. Yet, despite that enormous investment, the country remains one of the most violent societies in the world that is not at war. With a murder rate of roughly 45 per 100,000 people, South Africa stands far above most middle-income countries. So the question many citizens are asking is simple. Why isn't all that money making South Africans safer? Experts say the answer lies not only in the size of the police budget, but in how that money is spent, how the police service is structured, and how corruption and mismanagement have weakened the system. The size of the police budget. South Africa's National Police Service, the South African Police Service, employs around 188,000 personnel. That means the government spends about 1,920 rand per person each year on policing, which is higher than several comparable developing economies. To put this into perspective, the United States spends over $130 billion on policing, but has a much larger population. Countries like Brazil and Mexico, which also struggle with violent crime, operate different and more decentralized policing systems. Nations like India and Russia spend far less per person on policing, but have significantly lower murder rates. Despite this spending, South Africa's violent crime levels remain among the highest globally. The budget paradox. Experts say the real problem lies in how the budget is structured. More than 80% of police spending goes to salaries. And a large portion of the remaining budget is spent on visible policing, including patrol units and public-facing operations. But investments that could significantly improve crime detection, such as forensic laboratories, detective training, intelligence gathering, modern crime data systems, receive far less funding. In other words, the system focuses heavily on being seen rather than solving crimes. Low detection rates. One of the most alarming statistics relates to murder investigations. In some years, analysts estimate that only about 15% of murder cases are solved. Criminologists say that what deters crime is not the severity of punishment, but the likelihood of being caught. When criminals believe the chances of arrest are low, violent crime tends to increase. This lack of investigative capacity is one of the biggest weaknesses in the policing system. A top-heavy police structure. Another issue is the structure of the police service itself. Critics say the organization has become top-heavy, with a large number of senior officers compared to frontline investigators. Public disclosures suggest the police service includes approximately 170 major generals, 650 brigadiers. These high-ranking officers often earn significantly higher salaries than frontline personnel. Meanwhile, operational deployment remains limited. Only about 53% of police personnel are involved in operational duties, while 47% are assigned to administrative roles. This leaves many communities under-policed. Corruption and oversight concerns. Concerns about corruption have also plagued the police service. Several national inquiries have examined allegations of political interference and misuse of resources. One of the most significant investigations was the Zondo Commission, which exposed widespread state corruption. The inquiry cost more than 1 billion rand and resulted in the recovery of billions of rand in assets. However, critics argue that only limited criminal prosecutions have followed. More recently, the Matlanga Commission has begun examining issues within the policing system, including procurement corruption, misuse of intelligence funds, and alleged links between senior officers and organized crime. Rise of private security. As confidence in public policing declines, private security has grown rapidly. South Africa now has one of the largest private security industries in the world. Estimates suggest that around 2.7 million private security personnel operate in the country. That number vastly exceeds the number of active police officers. For many South Africans, safety now depends on whether they can afford private protection. A two-tier security system. Experts say this trend has created what they call a dual security system. In wealthier areas, armed private security patrols neighborhoods, surveillance cameras monitor streets, and rapid response teams handle emergencies. But in poorer communities, police stations are overstretched, response times are slow, and residents often rely on community patrols or vigilante groups. This growing gap means public safety increasingly reflects economic inequality. Financial risks for the police. Another major concern is the growing number of civil lawsuits against the police. Recent reports suggest the police service faces potential civil claims worth around 56.7 billion rand. That amount represents more than 40% of the annual police budget. Analysts say these liabilities highlight deeper systemic failures in training, discipline, and oversight. Possible solutions. International research shows that major improvements in crime reduction usually come from institutional reform rather than simply increasing budgets. Experts say South Africa may need to focus on strengthening detective units, investing in forensic technology, improving intelligence-led policing, reducing administrative bureaucracy, and strengthening internal anti-corruption mechanisms. Cities in parts of Latin America and Eastern Europe have successfully reduced violent crime by adopting similar reforms. South Africa does not lack financial commitment to policing. A 121 billion rand annual budget represents a significant investment in public safety. But the challenge lies in transforming that spending into effective crime prevention. Until structural reforms improve accountability, investigative capacity, and public trust, the country may continue facing the same troubling paradox: a large police budget but too little safety.